My sister accused me of not helping out financially for her wedding, but then I found out about this elaborate scam. Her fiance's decision shocked everyone. I 28. Have an older sister named Jane, 32. We grew up in a middle-class family and our parents always tried to treat us equally. They paid for our college education and helped us start our careers after college. I got a job in marketing while Jane became a teacher 5 years ago. I took a big risk and started my own business. It was really tough at first with long hours and a lot of stress. There were times when I wondered if I'd made a mistake, but I kept pushing forward. Slowly but surely things started to improve. Now my business is doing well and I'm making good money. Jane has continued working as a teacher all this time. She makes less than I do, but she really loves her job and finds it fulfilling. Looking back, I can see that even though our parents tried to be fair, there were times when Jane seemed to be the favorite. When we were kids, Jane always got to choose the movie on family movie nights. If we both wanted the same toy, Jane usually got it. Mom would often say things like, "Let your sister have it. She's older." It wasn't a huge deal, but those little things added up over time. Last year, Jane got engaged to her boyfriend Tom. They started planning a big wedding for this summer. Jane asked me to be her maid of honor, which made me really happy. I said yes right away, excited to be part of her special day. About a month ago, Jane came over to my house. She said she needed to talk about something important. We sat down in my living room and she started telling me all about her wedding plans. Everything sounded really nice: the venue, the flowers, the music. Then out of nowhere she asked me for money. She wanted me to pay for half of her entire wedding. I was completely shocked. Jane explained that since I make more money than her, she thought I should help pay for the wedding. She said it wasn't fair that I had so much while she struggled to make me. I tried to explain that I couldn't afford to pay for half her wedding. Yes, my business makes money, but I put most of it back into the company to help it grow. Plus, I have a mortgage and other bills to pay. Jane got really angry when I said no. She called me selfish and said I didn't care about her happiness. I tried to explain my situation better, but she wouldn't listen. She just got up and left, slamming the door on her way out. The next day, my mom called me. Jane had told her what happened, and Mom wanted to know why I wouldn't help my sister. I explained my financial situation to her, just like I had to Jane. Mom seemed to understand, but she still thought I should give Jane some money for the wedding. I told her I'd think about it, but honestly I felt frustrated. It reminded me of all those times growing up when Mom had sided with Jane. After thinking it over for a week, I called Jane. I offered to pay for her wedding dress as a gift. I thought this was a good compromise. It was a significant contribution, but something I could actually afford. But Jane refused. She said it wasn't enough and that I should pay for more. I told her the dress was all I could afford, and Jane hung up on me. After that phone call, things got really bad. Jane started telling our family and friends that I was greedy. She said I cared more about money than family. Some people believed her without even asking for my side of the story. My cousin stopped talking to me altogether. My aunt called to tell me I was being selfish. I felt terrible about the whole situation, but I didn't think I was wrong. I had worked really hard for my money. I couldn't afford to pay for half of Jane's wedding, and I didn't think it was fair for her to expect that from me. I thought offering to buy her dress was pretty generous considering my financial situation. Last week, my parents had a big family dinner. Jane and Tom were there along with our grandparents and some aunts and uncles. During dinner, Jane made an announcement that she and Tom were postponing their wedding. She said they couldn't afford it because I had refused to help. Everyone at the table turned to look at me. I felt awful, like I was being put on the spot. My grandmother asked why I wouldn't help my sister. Before I could even try to explain, Jane started crying. She said she had always dreamed of having a big wedding, but now she couldn't have one because of me. I tried to explain my side of things, but no one seemed interested in listening. My uncle said I should be ashamed of myself. My grandfather said that family should always help family. Even my dad, who usually stays out of argument, said I should reconsider my decision. The whole thing reminded me of when we were kids and everyone would take Jane's side. In our arguments, I couldn't take it anymore, so I left the dinner early. I felt like everyone was against me, like I was the bad guy in this situation. When I got home, I broke down and cried. I didn't know what to do or how to fix this mess. The next day, I got an unexpected call from Tom, Jane's fiance. He apologized for all the drama at the family dinner. He explained that Jane had been really stressed about the wedding costs. Tom told me that they could actually afford the wedding without my help. They just needed to cut back on some of the more extravagant plans. He said Jane had gotten carried away with her plans and had expected too much from me. I felt relieved after talking to Tom. I thought maybe things would start to get better now that the truth was out. But then Jane posted on Facebook about her postponed wedding. She didn't mention me by name, but she hinted that a family member had let her down. Many people commented saying how sorry they were. Some asked who had disappointed her. Jane didn't answer directly, but our cousin commented that I was the one who had refused to help. Now many of my friends and family members are angry with me. They keep sending me messages telling me I should help Jane. Some say I'm not a good sister. Others call me greedy. A few have even threatened to cut me out of their lives if I don't help Jane with the wedding. It's all so overwhelming and hurtful. I feel incredibly stressed and confused by this whole situation. I don't think I did anything wrong, but so many people are angry with me. Sometimes I wonder if maybe I should have done more to help Jane, but the reality is I really can't afford to pay for half her wedding, and I think it's unfair of her to expect that from me, especially without even discussing it. First, this situation has brought up a lot of old feelings from our childhood. Remember how Mom would often take Jane's side in arguments, or how Jane would get her way more often than I did. I love my sister, but it feels like she's always expected me to give in to her wishes. Just like when we were kids yesterday, my best friend suggested I post online for advice. She thinks an outside perspective might help me see things more clearly. I'm not sure what to do next. I want to repair my relationship with Jane and my family, but I also don't want to be taken advantage of. I worked hard to build my business and create financial stability for myself. I don't think it's right for Jane to expect me to jeopardize that for her wedding. I keep thinking about all the times in the past when I helped Jane out when she was struggling to pay rent during her first year of teaching. I lent her money. When her car broke down last year, I drove her to work for 2 weeks until she could get it fixed. I've always tried to be there for her, but it never seems to be enough. This whole situation has made me question a lot of things about my family relationships. I love my family, but I feel like they don't understand or respect my position. They see that my business is doing well and assume I have unlimited funds to share. They don't see the long hours, the stress, and the financial risks I've taken to get where I am. I'm also hurt that Jane would air our private business on social media. It feels like she's trying to manipulate me by turning others against me. I thought we were closer than that. I thought she would understand my position if I explained it to her, but instead she's chosen to paint me as the villain in this story. I keep wondering if there's something I'm missing. Am I really being selfish? Should I be doing more to help Jane, even if it means putting my own financial stability at risk? Or am I right to stand my ground and protect what I've worked so hard to build? I'm hoping that by sharing my story, I might get some outside perspectives. Maybe someone else has been in a similar situation and can offer advice, or maybe just writing it all out will help me see things more clearly. Right now, I feel stuck between my love for my family and my need to protect myself and my business. I don't know how to move forward from here. Update: after posting my story online, I received a lot of supportive messages and advice. Many people suggested I stand my ground and not give in to Jane's demands. They helped me see that I wasn't being selfish by protecting my financial stability. A few days after I posted, I got an unexpected call from my cousin Emma. Emma and I were close when we were younger, but we drifted apart over the years. She said she had seen my post and wanted to talk to me about Jane. Emma told me something that shocked me. She said that Jane had approached her about the wedding too. Jane had asked Emma to contribute a large sum of money, claiming that she and Tom were struggling financially. Emma, who works as a nurse and isn't particularly wealthy, felt pressured but eventually agreed to give Jane some money. But that wasn't all. Emma had recently found out that Jane had been asking several other family members and friends for money too. She wasn't just asking for small contributions, she was asking for thousands of dollars from each person. Emma estimated that if everyone Jane asked had agreed, she would have collected enough to pay for the entire wedding twice over. I was stunned. I couldn't believe Jane would do something like this. It seemed so manipulative and greedy. Emma said she felt used and was planning to confront Jane about it. She wanted to let me know first because she thought I deserved to know the truth. After talking to Emma, I did some digging of my own. I reached out to a few other family members and close friends. To my surprise, many of them had similar stories. Jane had approached them all separately, telling each one a sob story about how she couldn't afford her dream wedding. She had sworn each person to secrecy, claiming she was embarrassed about needing help. One of our aunts told me that Jane had even implied that I had promised to pay for half the wedding, but had backed out at the last minute. This explained why so many people had been Angry with me, Jane had been spinning a web of lies, making herself look like a victim and me like the villain. I felt hurt, angry, and betrayed. This wasn't just about money anymore. Jane had been actively trying to turn our family and friends against me. She had lied and manipulated people, all to fund an extravagant wedding she clearly couldn't afford. I spent a few days processing this information. I was torn about what to do. Part of me wanted to confront Jane immediately and expose her lies to everyone, but another part of me worried about the fallout. Despite everything, she was still my sister, and I didn't want to destroy our relationship completely. After much thought, I decided to talk to Tom first. He had seemed reasonable when he called me before, and I thought he deserved to know what his fiancé was doing. I invited him over to my house to talk. When Tom arrived, I could tell he was uncomfortable. He probably thought I was going to try to defend myself again about not contributing to the wedding. But as I started to explain what I had learned, his expression changed from discomfort to shock, then to anger. I told Tom everything about Emma's call, the other family members' stories, and Jane's lies about me. I showed him messages from relatives confirming their stories. Tom sat in silence for a long time. After I finished talking, finally Tom spoke. He told me he had no idea Jane was doing this. He said they had discussed their wedding budget, and while it was tight, they could afford the wedding they had planned. He couldn't understand why Jane would be asking people for so much money. Tom then shared something that made the situation even more confusing. He said that Jane had told him that her parents were paying for most of the wedding, and that's why they could afford such a big celebration. This was news to me. Our parents hadn't mentioned anything about this, and I knew they weren't in a financial position to fund a lavish wedding. As we talked more, Tom began to open up about other issues in his relationship with Jane. He said had a habit of exaggerating or lying about things, especially when it came to money. He had always brushed it off as harmless, but now he was seeing a pattern. Tom left my house that day looking troubled. He thanked me for being honest with him and said he had a lot to think about. I felt relieved to have told him the truth, but also worried about what would happen next. A week passed, and I didn't hear anything from either Tom or Jane. Then late one night, I got a text from Tom. It was brief. He said he had confronted Jane about everything I had told him, and things had not gone well. He said he needed some time to think and would be in touch. 3 days later, Tom called me. His voice sounded tired and sad. He told me that after a lot of soul searching and several difficult conversations with Jane, he had decided to call off the wedding. He said Jane had admitted to asking people for money, but had tried to justify it, saying she just wanted a perfect wedding. She didn't seem to understand how her actions had hurt people. Tom said he had realized that Jane's behavior around the wedding was part of a larger pattern of dishonesty and manipulation. He told me about other instances where she had lied or exaggerated things, often to get her way or to avoid taking responsibility for her actions. He said he couldn't marry someone he couldn't trust. I felt a mix of emotions hearing this. Part of me was sad for Tom and for the end of their relationship. Another part felt vindicated. Finally, someone else was seeing the side of Jane that I had glimpsed, and if I'm being honest, a small part of me felt relieved that the wedding drama was over. Tom asked me not to say anything to Jane or the rest of the family. He wanted to be the one to break the news. I agreed, thanking him for his honesty and wishing him well. The next day, all hell broke loose. Jane called me sobbing and furious. She accused me of ruining her life and destroying her relationship. She said I had turned Tom against her out of jealousy and spite. I tried to stay calm and explained that I had only told Tom the truth, but Jane wouldn't listen. She hung up on me, still crying. Over the next few weeks, the story came out in bits and pieces. Jane told our parents and some of our relatives that Tom had broken up with her because of me, but she was vague on the details. Tom, true to his word, told people that he and Jane had realized they weren't compatible and had decided to end things. Some family members, especially those Jane had asked for money, started to put the pieces together. A few reached out to me to apologize for how they had treated me earlier. Others seemed unsure what to believe and kept their distance from both me and Jane. Our parents were devastated. They had been looking forward to the wedding and were shocked by the sudden breakup. Mom, in particular, seemed lost. She kept trying to get Jane and Tom back together, not understanding the full story. As for Jane, she alternated between anger and despair. Some days she would call me crying and apologizing, saying she didn't know why she had done what she did. Other days she would send me angry texts, blaming me for everything. I tried to maintain boundaries, responding calmly when I did respond, but it was emotionally Exhausting. About a month after the wedding was called off, I got a surprising call from our dad. He asked if we could meet for coffee. When we met, he looked tired and older than I remembered. He told me that he and Mom had finally gotten the full story from Tom. He apologized for not believing me earlier and for the way the family had treated me. Dad also shared that this incident had opened his eyes to some of Jane's behavior patterns. He admitted that perhaps they had been too lenient with her over the years, always taking her side and making excuses for her actions. He said he and Mom were encouraging Jane to seek therapy to deal with her issues around honesty and money. As the dust began to settle, I found myself reflecting on the whole experience. It had been painful and stressful, but it had also brought some long-standing family dynamics to light. I hoped that maybe in the long run this would lead to healthier relationships within our family. Jane and I are still not on speaking terms. I'm not sure if or when our relationship will recover, but I feel more at peace with my decisions. I know I did the right thing by standing my ground and telling the truth, even though it led to difficult consequences. This experience taught me a lot about setting boundaries, standing up for myself, and the importance of honesty in relationships. It wasn't easy, and the aftermath is still ongoing, but I believe it was necessary. I'm hopeful that with time, therapy, and effort, my family can heal from this and become stronger. But I also know that it will take work from all of us, especially Jane, for that to happen.